Hi everyone, happy Tuesday. It's Scrappy Kathy here with an update, I suppose, restarting, reorienting myself in my album organization project. If you'll recall, uh, last week, what I managed to get done was all of my pages into page protectors and into albums, and all of the albums onto shelves. Nothing on the floor, nothing kind of stacked off, waiting for further action and so forth. And in that way, I was able to kind of go through and, excuse me, even though when I did that, I didn't worry about the order, so my miscellaneous Us albums were scattered in three different bookshelves. When I did my inventory, and it was like the very simplest process in the world, I wrote the first album I came across. I wrote down the name of the album, and I counted the one that had triggered that. And then I went through all the other albums, and I knew now exactly where all the albums were located. I just did, just marked off, and I counted 8 of them for the Places, for example. Miscellaneous Us was the next one I encountered, and it was the current one that I'm putting pictures in it. It's not anywhere near full, and then I found 2 others in the selection. And so I'm going to kind of talk to you. Those are the 3 albums I have right here. So I went through and counted all of them and listed all the types. And I came up, there were 98 total albums, and then I've bought 2 since then, and I'm going to buy 2 more today. So at the moment that I'm speaking to you, there are 100 albums. And just a little point of fact, I have 3 Kallax units that are, 2 of them are fully dedicated to albums at the moment. The third one will be, and it represents my future growth potential, because it has some cloth boxes that are storing things that will be able to go someplace else. I just kind of have to get those places, the receiving places, ready. And they are largely closets, and throughout this organization process, I've come across what I would call junk that I want to keep. It's stuff that may be mixed in with junk I don't want to keep. So there is some household organization that's going to have to occur in order to free up the space in those closets. And I've got 2 of them. One is in the master bedroom. It's the area where the heating unit and the hot water heater and the filing cabinet with all of our financial records and all of the plastic boxes that contain all of our Christmas decorations, kind of stacked floor to ceiling. And the other one is a closet that we kind of carved out when we built out our master bathroom. And it has some shelves in it that are holding some things now that are not necessary, that could go in the garage or someplace else, or the attic even. And there's a mixed bag of stuff in there now. Christmas wrapping stuff, all of the paints and painting supplies, because we did an awful lot of painting when we were building this place out, but all of those paints are over 5 years old, so they all need to be disposed of. But disposing of paint safely is kind of difficult to do. So those are just to kind of clue you in on some of the other projects that have spawned from my craft supply reorganization. It's going to keep me busy for for years. But so I came up with, as I looked at my list of albums here, I determined that I could group them into three categories, because the problem was, if I keep scrapping pages about Katie, for example, and I right now have, let's see, 5 albums about miscellaneous Katie. In other words, albums or pages that were scrapped in one year, but the pictures were taken a previous year. So for example, in 2020, if I scrapped a picture of her from 2006, that went in the miscellaneous Katie and not in any particular order. If in 2020, I scrapped a picture of her taken in 2020, which I did lots of because she graduated from high school and she got her driver's license and she got a job and started cosmetology college and all of these things. So all of those go in the 2020 album, again, not divided by person, but kind of generally scrapped in chronological order, although in October I might go back and find a photo in January that I hadn't scrapped or that I had scrapped and want to do something different with. So I don't have any hard and fast rules there. So I divided the albums into first of all, this was I translated the inventory to this page, which has active albums, less active albums, and static albums. Right now, the most active album I have is 2020, but in January, it's going to become static. So 2020 is for pages scrapped in 2020 with using pictures from 2020. And I have 8 of those albums right now. So, and Oh the Places, I hope that one is active and not static. It's just miscellaneous travels. I have some specific travel books that's like baseball road trips, and it, I think, is in the less active albums. But if we take a trip to see a baseball game, goes in there. Then I have miscellaneous Katie, miscellaneous Barrett, miscellaneous Ava, and miscellaneous kids. Kids are Katie B and Ava, and Allie for that matter down here. We don't have as many photos of Allie because she doesn't live with us, but if we go through those are pages with photos that are just of that person. If there are 2 or more kids in there, it goes in kids. Same for Allie. You know, I have lots of photos of Allie and even a couple taken this year, but she's with other kids, so it would go in miscellaneous kids. Or actually it went in 2020 because I scrapped them in 2020. But anyway, so I had active albums, ones that I anticipate to continue growing at a fairly rapid pace, so I need to consider expansion on these. And then less active albums are ones that will grow, that'll probably grow beyond the number of the albums I have now, but maybe not that much. Static albums are ones that I think either I'm finished scrapping about that subject, or everything that I anticipate doing will fit in the album that's already there. So, for example, we had a home in Belgium. That's all the photos and everything, all the memories of Belgium, not from the places that we visited, but the home and the little neighborhood that we lived in. Japan 1967 is a redo of an album I made in 1967 in an album that wasn't acid-free, so the pictures had deteriorated, so I went through a very arduous scanning and restoration process a couple years ago, and I've scrapped nearly all of the photos that with memories that I care about. I have some room in that album, so if a prompt comes up in a challenge that I'm doing and I have the perfect photo from Japan, I will do another page and it'll go in that album. So, but I don't think these will grow. So at some point, I may write up a PDF about the. I don't necessarily want to go through it now, but I'm kind of trying to figure out how to do that. Just to kind of give you an example, I've got there's our wedding, which was in 1981, and at 1981, James and I and John, after the marriage, we became the three of us. So I've got anything that about me before James was born. It is called the Kathy years. That's when I was Kathy. Then after James was born, you could call it the mommy years, but I call it the T-boy years because that's what all my family called him when he was little. And so when it was just me and T-boy, till he was, and there's some vague references and even some photos in there from my marriage to his dad, which ended not long after he was born. So I go from Kathy years to the T-boy years, and the T-boy years are when it was just me and him before I married John. So from 1974 to 1981 were the T-boy years. And then there's the three of us years from 1981 to when he graduated in 1996. Then the empty nest years were when we were in Houston and before any grandkids were born. It was after he had moved. And so the nature of the photos changes from when it was the three of us. Lots of photos of the three of us or lots of photos of him taken by me and scrapped. And then there are the empty nest years, which were after he graduated, but before we had grandkids to go visit. So those were a lot of trips that we took, adventure travel type trips, some work related trips. I would be on a business trip or John would, and then the other would join. So there was probably mostly travel. Then there are the Granny and Grumpy years from 2002 after Katie was born and we became grandparents to 2008 when we retired and moved to Georgia to be near the grandkids. So these were mostly trips that they made down to Houston or that we made to Atlanta or up to Kentucky where they were living for a while before they moved to Atlanta. And then after we moved to Georgia, I started with Project Life. Well, actually, I didn't start with Project Life until 2012, but I went back and documented and scrapped all those years from 2008 through 2011 in one Project Life book. And that's static. I'm not going to be scrapping any more there. If I scrap anything I can scrap pictures from that era. I don't go back and put them in that book. I actually put them in miscellaneous kids or Ava or Barrett or whatever. So anyway, I could tell you how I organize these albums. There's a blog post on my blog from a few years back called www.scrappykathy.com, and you'll find a blog post on my life stages. I organized my albums into life stages around the time that I wrote that blog post, and it was my major album reorganization project then. And I need to reactivate my blog, I guess, one of these days. So anyway, my next thing that I needed to do is to group albums together, like albums together, and label them. So what I want to do is have common labels and so forth. And I kind of address storage. So my labeling process was active albums, ones that I anticipate continue growing. I want to pull groups, arrange by date, number and label, and create future labels, and store in flexible storage areas where they can grow into the space. And I put a question mark because I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work. Less active albums, pretty much the same thing, but it goes into a semi-flexible storage area. Static albums are largely already in groups and generally numbered and labeled, so there's not a lot of reshuffling that's going to have to be done there. I will print labels where needed to get rid of sticky notes, which is an issue. That's exactly the issue right there. They fly off. And I need to store in permanent storage areas in order, if applicable. So I just need to determine in my own little space I have down here where all of this is going to occur. And arrange by date. So that's what I'm going to kind of go through right now and just kind of give you an example of my process. I've pulled from a group from a category, Miscellaneous Us, which are miscellaneous photos of John and me doing wherever and doing whatever. Some things that should have gone in the places, so some of these might be trips. So let me just, what I'm going to do is kind of go through and note the dates on things. So here's a page, for example. I haven't seen that page in a while. That was, let's first check and see if this page was numbered, if I was doing my labels at the time. There is no label on this. It's an early mixed media page that I actually kind of like. I did mirror images of a stencil of houses and colored these with warm colors, these with cool, and went over the background stencil area to do the detail in white up here and in black down here so that it would look like a reflection. And then, some of these, I'm not going to flip through the whole thing, but this could have gone in a miscellaneous family sort of thing. A lot of these I could recognize were done for various challenges. And you can see I had already scrapped that photo back here. So yeah, and I'm sure I did. I need to glue my E on there. So anyway, I can, as I flip through, I can kind of recognize well, look, there's the same photo in black and white. I like that photo, so. And there's us with Katie in front of the RV, the day that we bought the RV, baby Katie. Okay, so anyway, I kind of recognize the vintage of the challenges when I scrapped in here. And I think this is my very first book. To be honest, the fact that it's labeled with that label there, I don't know if you can see that. It's kind of got I've got some alphas, I used some alphas that I was using several years back and put a little heart on there. So by virtue of that label, and that's kind of how I would like these labels to continue, because this one is already done. So I know that this is the current one, so, but let's just pretend I didn't know. So we'll go here to this one that's labeled Miscellaneous Us. And I'll check out. I know that I did that first album from about 2016 forward. And there are, even though in that album there are 3 pages done with that same photo, I probably did those in 3 different years. So I wasn't scrapping nearly as much as I do now, back in those years. So these may have dates on them. This one has, this was scrapped in 2019, and I'm sure there are some others in here that were scrapped in other years. Now these I think I remember from 2019. Okay. This one is a fairly recent one, but anyway, you get the idea of where there are pictures of the 2 of us, or in the case of John, the ones that are just photos of me that are kind of introspective pages prompted by some challenge or another, those will go in the Miscellaneous Me. If it's a picture I took of John, I will do, I will put it in Miscellaneous Us. So I have a missing E here, and it's got to be somewhere in this page protector, or I lost it. I need to go back and fix that. So maybe that's another project, is to go back in and fix things. Now this album is kind of stuffed a little bit more than I'd like, and I apologize for hitting my lampstand. I usually don't handle albums on my filming table, but so basically I'm going to try to, for this project, I'm going to try to come up with a label like this for each of these 3 albums, and I will attach a number. This will be 1, that one that we just looked at will be 2, and this current one will be 3. This album, as you notice, does not have a nice label holder like this one does. So I'm going to print a label that looks like it has, in fact, I'm going to print them all, look like they have a frame. I'm going to scan one of these with a blank label in it. I'm going to scan it on my scanner, and then I'm going to print it, or in any case, if I'm going to insert it into one of these, into an album that does have a frame, I'll cut the frame off and just put the inside. But if it doesn't have a frame, I will leave the scan of the frame. This is my idea. I'll let you know how it works, because I'm going to try it this week, and you'll see on Saturday whether that was a good idea or not. So in any case, I don't necessarily need all the albums to have uniform labels, but all the groups I would like to have uniform labels. So if I can do it, if I can get it out of here, or I may just take a photo of this and try to replicate that, and then add a number. And I'll probably use a number from one of my millions of alpha sets. So that's kind of, it's basically the analysis is done for this group, this Miscellaneous Us group, and they will be put up in 1, 2, 3 order. I may have a special area where all the current ones for the active albums, where the current books are, or I may decide to go ahead and just leave them in place, but draw myself a nice little map of where that place is. Now, the miscellaneous us, an example of the analysis that I might do there. Let's see, what did I classify that as? Let's see, I listed it under less active albums. So it's going to grow, but I'll ask myself, is it going to grow beyond, until I kick the bucket? Will I need more than this album? And the answer is probably yes. So I will probably, for this year and part of next, I won't need any more than this. But that I feel like I can safely store the 3 of these together without room for a 4th, and be good for the length of time that I have this organization scheme. So that's kind of my thinking there. Now, 2020, for example, has 8 albums now. I'm probably going to do, what is this? This is October. I'm probably going to do, and I'm at, let's see. I generally do 700 and some odd pages a year. I'm at 561. So let's say I have 200 more pages for the rest of the year. Not all of them, obviously, are going to go in the 2020 album. They're going to get spread out all the way across. So let's just say 100 will go in the 2020 album. And because there are going to be some Halloween pictures, maybe some Thanksgiving pictures, some Christmas photos, and so forth. So let's say 100 pages in the 2020 album. I don't know how many pages I have in my latest 2020, but let's say I might need 4 more albums. It might be a total of 12. Gosh, that's a whole album a month. That's interesting. But it is what it is. 2020 is a year that I've actually had lots of time to scrap, and have done so with more current pictures. There's been a lot going on. So, so I might, when I store that, have an extra, I might store that in the Kallax unit that has one of those cloth boxes. And if I know I'm going to need, say, 4 more albums for the end of the year, I'll leave the cloth box there until the end of the year, and then I'll move the cloth box when I need that storage. So that's kind of my thinking right now. So I know this is kind of a mess, but I just kind of want to give you an idea of the thought process I'm going through, and then I'll go do some physical work and try to see if that was if I thought of everything, or if I need to add to these. And then I may try to make some, give you some links to some PDF files or something that, if you're interested, to what all I came up with and what I learned in the course of this process. This is probably going to be my most arduous task. It has been already very physically demanding, as well as probably the one most difficult for me to feel like I've really got it, if you know what I mean there. So I'm having fun with this, because it makes me kind of have to look at into albums and see things. And I hadn't looked in these until this morning, and that was kind of cool, seeing those pages. But I think I'm going to be glad when this is done, or when I decide to call it done. And I may do that before I've completely done every last bit of it, or not. So we'll see. We'll see. I'll talk to you again on Saturday. I'm going to work hard on this. I'm generally doing scrapping only 1 page a day, trying to hold myself to that. Although I do have on Saturday, I have a Zoom crop, but I should be done with filming the after video for this before I do that Zoom crop. So I should be able to squeeze in the time to get really good progress on this made. So thank you for watching. Sorry this was kind of a bit of a jumble here, but hopefully you got some insight into where I'm headed. Bye.